Hello everyone, my name is Kudzie Mapiye, and on this channel I do videos about my life living here in Australia, and I also share different life lessons that I've learned along the way. In today's video I'm going to be sharing 5 things that still shock me about the Australian culture even after 15 years living in Australia. And that's the thing with culture shock. With some things, like, you kind of like assimilate, you adopt, it becomes normal to you. And some things continuously shock you, like you cannot adjust because they are so different from your own culture. Now, these are the 5 things that I'm going to be discussing in this video today. And the first one is swearing. There is so much swearing that happens in Australia. It's shocking. For someone who comes from a culture that swearing is not normal. When you hear people swearing, like in Zimbabwe, if you're to hear people swearing, it's usually because they're angry or people are fighting. It's not part of normal language for the majority of people. Now, there are people like who do like swear as part of their, just the way they talk, but it's not a lot of people. It is very few people. Most people don't just swear and, drop in a swear word every third word or something like that. But it's something that I found to be normalized in Australia, even in the workplace. Like, even when I go to work, it is pretty normal to hear someone swearing on a phone call, to hear someone swearing in a meeting, like to just hear people swearing everywhere. And even when you go to the shops, you go to different areas, parents swear at their kids, like, their kid does something wrong, like they can just swear at them. Kids swear, like my son knows so many swear words for his age that at that age I didn't know. And he doesn't swear because it's something that is not accepted in this house, but he talks about swear words that he hears his friends say. And for some of them, it's something that is normal in their households. Like, it's okay for 8-year-olds to swear at their friends as they talk. The swearing in Australia is something that I still have not gotten used to. Like, sometimes there's some people who swear like more than others, and when you're having a normal conversation with them and it's just like swear word after swear word, I'm just like, taken aback, because it's something that is still very different for me and I cannot see myself adopting that. So that's the first thing that is still shocking. The second thing is jokes about Jesus. Now, coming from Zimbabwe, Jesus, the name Jesus is such a sacred name that you don't make jokes about Jesus. But in Australia, it's something that is so normal. On comedy shows, like, they make jokes about Jesus. Just the other day, 2 days ago, I was listening to the radio and they were making this joke about Jesus and they were laughing. And I'm like, wow, this is, even after 15 years, this is something I just cannot get used to. Where I come from, religion is respected so much, especially, the name Jesus. You're not even supposed to use it in vain. Like, it's something that is not acceptable, especially in public or on television, like when people just make jokes about Jesus. And the funny thing is, Australians, I think Australia is predominantly a Christian country. Like, there are more Christians than any other religion in Australia, from my experience, from what I've observed, but they still make jokes about Jesus. Even people who believe in Jesus or are Christians still make jokes about Jesus or laugh at jokes. I'm just like, wow, this is so unusual. And every time that happens, I feel so uncomfortable. Like, it's something that I can't laugh at. If a joke is made about Jesus, it's something that I haven't gotten used to, because to me, like, that name is still, something precious, whether or not you're a Christian. Just respecting like different religions and the names that they find to be sacred, or the people that are sacred in those religions, is not something we laugh at or make jokes about in Zimbabwe. So that is something that I find shocking still. still living here in Australia. The third thing is walking barefoot. Walking with no shoes on. That is something that I've seen so many people doing. Like, you can be in a grocery store and you can see people shopping with no shoes on, and no one is looking at them funny. Like, it's normal. People can just walk around with no shoes on. People can go and collect their kids with no shoes on. Like, it's normal to see people without wearing any shoes in Australia. And, the bottom of their feet would be so like dirty because they're walking with no shoes. But it's something like, meh, it's just another thing. And I think the most shocking is when you see it in a grocery store, because like, when I grew up in, Zimbabwe, you just never used to see people with no shoes on unless they were maybe like didn't have a place to stay. They were staying on the street, but not someone who's walking out of their house, leaving to go to the grocery store, and they just don't wear shoes on. Like, it's just unusual for me, and it's something that I still stare at. Like, if I see someone with no shoes on and it's not, I feel like it's some place that you should be wearing shoes, I still kind of feel like, where are your shoes? But apparently it's okay to walk with no shoes on in Australia. The fourth thing is PDA, public display of affection. Now, this is something I've gotten a little bit used to, but it's still something that kind of just makes me uncomfortable when I see people. Like, it's okay when people like hug or kiss, but there's this thing about like squeezing your partner's bottom that is so normal in Australia. Like, when you see couples walking, like, the man would just put his hand on his partner's bottom and give it a little squeeze or a little rub, and that is normal. To me, I still feel like, wow, like, this is so unusual. Like, wow, doing this in public. But hey, it just happens everywhere. Like, you see older people. I remember, like, even at work, even at work, like, you see people, maybe they're with their partner, or, over lunch, they're meeting with their partner and they come and see them at work or whatever. And you can see them in the foyer at work and they give each other a little bum squeeze. I don't know why that is it unusual to you? Is it normal everywhere else? I don't know. Is it just an Australian thing? But I find that it happens a lot, and I see it a lot. Different age groups, older people, younger people, middle-aged people, everyone seems to have this thing about PDA. Like, people are going up the lift, they're holding on to each other's bottoms. People are walking in the grocery store, they're holding on to each other's bottoms. Like, I don't know, but it is still a culture shock to me. And the last thing, the fifth thing that I still find to be a culture shock is dressing when it comes to, and I've spoken about, culture shock, and in my previous videos about things that I find to be a bit of a culture shock. Some things I have gotten used to over time, like, dressing. Australia, Queensland, Brisbane, where I live, is quite hot, so people do wear very, very short shorts or short skirts, like short shorts for men and women, like tiny shorts, and a singlet, and it's okay. Now I'm used to that, but it's when it's done by an older person, and I mean older by, like, they look 60 years plus. They look like they're over 60, 70 years old, and they're still walking around with like these teeny tiny shorts. And I love it. It's still a shock, but I love it for them. Like, for them to feel confident and comfortable in their bodies at that age. I feel it's something very, very, like, it's something good. I think it's something to be celebrated. I know if that was to happen in Zimbabwe, like, someone would give you a wrap so that you can, cover yourself. That would not be accepted, because older people are supposed to dress more modestly. Like, someone who's like a grandmother age wouldn't be seen in very short shorts, like, or very short skirts. It's, that shows a lot of their skin. It's something that is so unusual in my culture, but it's something that I find happens a lot. Even like grandmothers wearing bikinis at the beach, it is very, very normal. But I still find it as a culture shock, because in my culture there's this, power distance that exists between older people and younger people. There is so much respect that we give to older people, especially like someone who's old enough to be someone's grandmother. They're like kind of like a grandmother to everyone, you know what I mean? So there's so much respect that we give to older people, and I think that's why for me it's still a bit of a culture shock, because I'm like, oh, this is someone I respect so much, and I'm seeing them like, wearing very little. It's still something that, it's still subconscious, I think, in my mind, that I still get shocked. But, it is what it is. I love that people that age can feel comfortable. And yeah, those are some of the things that are still shocking for me, which just shows that no matter how long you stay in a certain place, there are still some things that will still stand out, some things that will still remind you that, hey, you are in a different place. This is not the place that you grew up, like you are in a foreign country. It still reminds you, when you have these moments of, culture shock, it reminds you that, oh, I'm in a foreign country. Oh, I need to, just accept different ways of expression, different ways of being, different ways of seeing things. And I think, living in Australia has really just made me a little bit more open-minded and less judgmental, because, at first I would have really been so judgmental, like, you're not supposed to do that. Why would someone that age dress like that? Or, oh, why are people touching each other like this? Because it's against what I see as normal, so I would question it and judge it. But now I've just learned to look at things with curiosity and not judgment, to just say, that's different. Wow, I wonder what that's about. That's different from what I would do, or that's different from what I've seen growing up, but doesn't necessarily need to be from a judgmental point of view. So that's one of the things that I appreciate about living in Australia, that it's just made me, I think, a better person in that regard, less judgmental, more accepting of so many different cultures. Like, I'm accepting of, a lot of different cultures, their cultural norms, the things, even their food. I try a lot more food. I interact with a lot more people. And I think, it just opens up your world, and it just makes the world a little bit more exciting. Yeah, so that's it for me, guys. Those are the things that still shock me about life in Australia. If there's anything that really stood out to you that also shocked you, please let me know in the comments below. I always enjoy reading your comments and interacting with you there. All right, I will see you in my next video.